Little disclaimer, some of the footage throughout this review is glitched. Now, it's not particularly common throughout the footage, but at one point the particle effects glitch out, and at another, the water turns green. Sour apple flavored. But yeah, that's just what happens when you play it on an emulator, because, as we all know, N64 games are still kind of pricey, so that's just my way of recording this. But with that out of the way, let's get into the review proper. Greetings, fellow gamers. The name's Slayer the Raccoon. I've come once again to delve into the mixed bag that is the Nintendo 64. To put it lightly, I have some problems with this system. I have a video going over said problems that you should check out if you haven't already, but that's beyond the point. The N64 has some of the most beloved games of all time in its library, and one of those games is none other than the absolutely legendary GoldenEye. A once revolutionary game in the realm of first-person shooters, GoldenEye nowadays is kinda like the Space Jam of video games. Released in the mid-1990s to huge success and fanfare, with loads of people gushing over it, only for people to question if it was even good to begin with years later. Many of my own friends and fans also seem to hold this notion that GoldenEye is like a month-old bottle of chocolate milk left out on a hot summer's day. Sure, it was delicious when you took your first sip, but coming back now, it is absolutely wretched. But is it really? I know I and others like me can give the N64 a hard time for all of its flaws, and the adversities it put on its own games. But let's give GoldenEye a fair shot and see if it holds up to some sort of standards. The plot in this game is based around the Bond film of the same name, which was released 2 years earlier. I feel the problem with a lot of licensed games is that they tend to be released almost concurrently with the movies that they were based upon, which means less development time and results in less than desirable products. It's good that GoldenEye spent a decent amount of time in the development oven to circumnavigate this issue. You'll be seeing many of the same locations as in the movie, but this being an N64 game, it fails in the cinematic department. Voice acting pretty much doesn't exist aside from enemy grunts. Instead, you get this awkward text on the screen.
So cinematic.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me how bad a decision sticking with cartridges was, Nintendo. It feels good to have grown up with Medal of Honor instead of this. But that's for another review. The visual, I'd say, looked quite good for their time. Yes, it's fun to laugh at these blocky figures nowadays, but this was pretty good looking for its time, all things considered. Some of the environments can look pretty empty though, and it kinda looks like a precursor to the whole washed out shtick that would become popular with a lot of shooters later down the line. One thing that, even for its time, was distracting is how Bond just holds assault rifles and SMGs with one arm. People keep making memes about the box art, but to me, nothing is funnier than the thought of wielding an AK during battle with one arm. It's a good thing game devs quickly learned how to give players 2 functioning arms. I must also commend this game for probably being the first game to have bullet wound decals, although they are barely noticeable. Hell, even a lot of games from the 7th gen onwards were too lazy to get that down. If you shoot someone point blank in the face with a shotgun, it's gonna look like a Gore Grind album cover. None of that Sleeping Beauty bullshit. Get it right, game devs. As for the sound design, voice acting notwithstanding, it's decent for the N64. A lot of reused weapon sounds, but they all sound nice and meaty, and the soundtrack consists of high-quality MIDI remixes of the James Bond theme. Unfortunately, that does mean you will get tired of hearing the same melody being repeated on end, but it's decent for what it's worth. But unfortunately, things begin to fall apart pretty quickly with this game. For one, the controls. Granted, this is mostly a result of this monstrosity passing itself off as a controller, but yikes, this game is very janky in the controls department, which is pretty evident on my first playthrough of the first level. It'll just take some time to get used to. The free aim in particular is the worst offender. I never really got the hang of it, because it's so damn slippery and sensitive. Thank God this game has auto-aim, but even that won't always help you. Once you finally get used to those damn controls, you'll find out that the levels themselves suffer from some bad gameplay and design choices as well. Certain objectives will state that they're incomplete until you finish a mission, which at one point left me wandering back and forth around the level just trying to find something, only to find out that, oh wait, I can just leave the level and then it'll just magically say objective complete. How fun. And this game commits a major sin of having semi-open-ended levels with no game map to help guide you. And even being on the N64 isn't a valid excuse for that, because Ocarina of Time had an in-game map 1 year later. And something else I noticed halfway through this game, GoldenEye recycles some levels. Both surface levels from the first half of the game have almost the exact same layout, only difference being the skybox. The first level with Netanya, I think she's called. Okay, actually her name is Natalia. Natalia? I suck at pronunciation, so either one's good enough for me. Also recycles parts of the first bunker level. Again, this is probably those N64 cartridges at play. It's amazing how much better this game could have been if it was released on the PS1 instead. Did I mention that Rareware made this? Yeah, I would have expected better from a developer as legendary as them. I mean, all these problems in this game is still considered the best movie licensed game of all time? How? Aside from the limitations holding this game back from unleashing its true spirit animal, this game features a bevy of overly spawning enemies and poorly designed, recycled levels, a lack of clear navigation, and one of the worst succession of escort missions in all of gaming. Not something worthy of being considered an all-time classic. However, I can't deny how influential GoldenEye was to the FPS genre. For its time, this was groundbreaking, and went on to influence almost everything in the FPS genre, from Half-Life to Halo to Call of Duty. All these games owe some of the roots to this Bond game, but man has it aged like milk. It started off fine in the first couple of levels, but after about the 4th level or so, I was starting to get migraines from frustration. Whether it be the controls, the overabundance of respawning enemies, or having to go on YouTube every 5 minutes just to look up a walkthrough because I just wanted this game to end at times. I will admit that this game can still be fun at times, and the multiplayer was a hit for a reason. Although I can't truly judge that portion of the game, I won't lie though, there's still some fun to be had with GoldenEye multiplayer if you have the resources, but other than that, this is kind of a bad game that just so happened to influence dozens of games much better than it. So I'll hesitantly give GoldenEye
5 out of 10.
That'll definitely enrage some gamers in their rose-tinted goggles, but the anti-hype is kinda real. I wasn't expecting to hate GoldenEye, but merely feel disappointed by it. But as time went on and I kept seeing this game at its worst, I've grown to dislike GoldenEye on a gameplay level. But at the end of the day, we probably wouldn't have the likes of Half-Life or Halo without it, at least not how we know them. We can all appreciate games that went on to influence entire genres, but it's important to look back on them and recognize their flaws. GTA 3 is up there as the most influential game ever, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have its fair share of jank. Some games can't help but age poorly, and that's fine. If you love this game, that's alright with me. I'm thankful that people can get enjoyment out of games that I couldn't, but maybe take off those rose-tinted glasses every once in a while and really see how far we've come, because you can improve a game's formula without looking at its predecessor's flaws. I think most gamers are aware of this, but GoldenEye's multiplayer was a last-minute addition. Honestly, it's good this game had the multiplayer feature in the first place, because without it, people might have started to see GoldenEye for what it really is a lot sooner. Because Medal of Honor and its amazing underground expansion only had 2-player multiplayer. People just don't remember those games as much even though they really should, but I'll get to those 2 masterpieces another day. GoldenEye had a well-known spiritual successor known as Perfect Dark. I think it's obvious that Perfect Dark is a much better game in general, and I hope to get to it one day, but one thing of note is how this game is merely relegated to multiplayer and training missions if you don't have the N64 expansion pack. Really goes to show you how underpowered this little system was. Oh well, the nostalgia and hype still doesn't deter from the fact you got your ass handed to you by the PlayStation.